Why every artist feels insecure and how do we overcome this? You know, if you've ever felt like this with your art or doubted your talent, you're not alone, okay? Every artist at every level has gone through this. No matter how they're experienced, the struggle is real. But what if those doubts were actually what shapes your own unique style? You know, I talk about this a lot in my Facebook community, Painting with Yvette. I have over 42,000 students that I mentor each week on my lives. And this is one of those topics that never gets old. I always circle back to it because as new students join, you know, they face this fear. And as a matter of fact, I have artist friends who have been painting for years and years, and they still have these insecurities. And I'll let you know that I have been painting professionally for over 22 years. I'm a licensing artist. I'm a published artist. You will find my artwork in big box retailers from Kohl's to Hobby Lobby, Kirkland, Target, Wayfair, At Home, you name it, my art is out there. I first started actually specializing in home decor. So you will see in those stores a lot of my wall art. And it wasn't probably until maybe 7 years ago that I really started gaining more confidence with my art and still growing. But at that point in my career, a recession hit. So I was kind of out of the painting groove. Now I have a backstory of how I got into art licensing. That's a little bit daunting and I'll save it for another time. But, you know, getting into the industry, yeah, it's tough. I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of competition out there. But I'm trying to, you know, reverse the way of thinking when it comes to competing, right? As creatives, when I was emerging, there was a lot of competition and there was a lack of support. So, you know, where does this fear come from? The fear comes from us comparing our work to others. We see successful artists out there. We see artwork in the stores and, you know, on social media, artists are posting their work and how they've sold this much or how they're successful or it's in the store. And just so you know, it's not easy. It takes work, it takes dedication, and it takes commitment. A lot of motivation behind it. So no matter how easy it might look for those artists that have grown success, it has been the bumpiest ride for all of us, let me tell you. Even though we might have different stories, there are a lot of like fluke, chance, possibilities and opportunities that have come to artists. I definitely am not one of them. But I want to stay focused on this real problem with artists is this insecurity with our art. Because it's really important to understand that there are steps that you can take to overcome this. And that's what I'm here for today. I want to really touch base on this and help you if you're an emerging artist or it's something that you've thought of, or you know what, maybe you know somebody who loves doing art and creating and they just don't know where to go with it. But this is another reason why I teach art courses. And, you know, I have over 40 online art classes that touch on so many different levels of your creative journey. And honestly, if you want to check them out, just hit subscribe, scroll down in the description, and you will see links to my courses. I have introductory videos on all of them so you can learn what I will be teaching in those courses. But the beauty about joining my courses is you not only get these unlimited access to the course that you purchase, lifetime unlimited access that you can watch at your own time because they are pre-recorded. But you get an invitation to my exclusive Facebook community, Painting with Yvette, where I go live every Monday with my students. And I talk about all these things because the number one thing that you need to start overcoming these insecurities is support. Support and encouragement. And I provide that as a detrimental resource to the way that I educate in educating my students in art is the support. Because it's one thing to run a class and you can do it on your own time, and let's get real, probably about 40% of people who sign up actually do the lessons. But having the support and being able to communicate with your instructor and ask these questions and really go on a journey, because that's what it's about. I want to create a journey. I don't want to just create a lesson, sign up, and then you're done, move on to the next. My whole way of teaching is a journey, and it's, step by step. You follow along with me, but I'm constantly talking and giving you tools on how you can kind of veer off on your own. And this is really important because, to overcome that insecurity, even if you are a professional artist, because we've all been there and you could still be struggling with that today, we need that boost of confidence to let us know that our art is good enough to share. I have a lot of students that are reluctant to share their work because they're going in the group and they're seeing all these students' work and thinking, well, my art's not as good as theirs. That's not the point of it. We're not there to compare. And I'm always talking about how your unique style and the way that you paint is how you are going to develop into your own style and grow as a unique artist. You see, being in art licensing, we need to delve into our own style, because when you start working with agents and manufacturers and art directors and retailers, they have artists that are already doing what's in the store. So they need artists that can do different things. And one thing that I'm always talking to my students about and encouraging is there is a place for every type of art. A lot of emerging artists feel that you have to have real technical drawing skills to be an artist, and this isn't the case. There's so many amazing artists out there who do abstract or like these really kind of quirky, either like line or kid art, they call it, where it looks really juvenile, and that's really on trend right now. I mean, in the art licensing industries, trends come and go like the snap of your finger. So if you have something in your portfolio that you did, I bet at some point it's going to come around. The little stick figure that you did in elementary school is going to start appearing in the walls at Hobby Lobby and at home, guaranteed it at some point. An important thing to remember is embracing the imperfections in your art. Those are what make you unique. And I know it's easy for me to say all these things, but these are valuable tips that you can start kind of like implementing in your brain and thinking about when you're creating and you're looking at your art. Instead of looking at your art and saying, so-and-so posted something and their floral vase is so much better than mine. Instead of thinking that way, start thinking, oh, look how different mine is compared to theirs. That's what makes it unique. And you just start building off that. With every creative journey, and no matter what stage you are in your art career, there's always room for growth. I have been growing for 22 years, and that's why I'm where I am today. And it doesn't stop. I am constantly being challenged. My insecurities are being challenged every day in this industry. I get asked to do things that I've never done before. And at one point in my career, when I first started and I got asked to do those things, I would try it and it would be an epic fail. And I say epic fail because I put so much time and effort into creating what I thought they wanted. And then, my publisher wouldn't publish it or take it, or they wouldn't even entertain showcasing it or presenting it to their buyers. So it was a very, very discouraging. But one thing I've learned over the years is, it's kind of one of the tips that I'm going to save for another episode, because, saving your artwork, like, don't throw anything out. Like, trust me, things that you think are not worthy of a portfolio are going to blow your mind what the industry loves and would pick up. But let's just circle back into these insecurities and how we can address them. Big one is just embracing those imperfections and surrounding yourself with a community of supporters. It could be a friend, it could be a family member. If you don't have support there, then you need to go to a really good online community. And honestly, I'm going to brag a bit here. I have the most amazing art group at Painting with Yvette. My Facebook community has got about 20,000 students. That's half of my registered students. There's a lot of students that aren't on Facebook because maybe the demographic, they're not connected to social media. And that's why I'm kind of on YouTube too, to reach the students that aren't connected with me live. But this is, my students brag about it, I brag about it, and it's something that I'm very proud of because I've got this community of 20,000 supportive emerging artists from all levels. Beginners, they just signed up today. I've got artists that are signing up, or wannabe artists signing up every day. So I get such a broad range. I've got artists that started today, artists that started 6 months ago, artists that have been with me for the last 3 years from the very beginning that are still in this group and coming here for support. You build friendships and you build like your close niche of like cheerleaders. It's like a little cheerleading squad. And I have a story to share because one of my students, so last month I started a newsletter with my Painting with Yvette community. It's not something I put out public. I'm working on that, but it's another way that I can reach the students that aren't in my Facebook group. But I have a section in that newsletter that is like the emerging artist student spotlight section. So every month I spotlight a student who is present in the group, because that's the only way I see your art is if you share to the group. So you could be creating and not sharing in the group, and I don't even know what you're doing, or you're not even getting that one-on-one support from me because maybe you're not participating. And this is why I encourage everybody, just hop on, introduce, say hi. You don't even have to share right away, which a lot of students don't until they start watching my lives, and I encourage them and boost them, and all this other students are cheering them on. Like, isn't that great? That's what we need. But anyways, getting back to my story, because I do tend to trail off a little bit. So I reached out to my team, and I were planning, the next 12 months of newsletter features. So I was reaching out to various students of all levels. So ones like newbies that have been with me for a couple months, and ones that have been with me for 3 years that have actually now gone on and created their own business, thanks to my courses. By the way, I'm so proud of them, and y'all know who you are. And we will talk about that too at some point, because I'm going to bring them on some special live. So that's another reason why you want to subscribe. and so that you can get alerts when I do these special interviews and have more information to share. But anyways, I reached out to this one particular student. I'm not going to name her name because I don't know if she wants me to. In the group I would have, but the world is seeing this. But anyways, I reached out to this one particular student because she kept doing these beautiful florals that were really what drew me is, and honestly, art is an opinion, but what drew me to her and her art is a few things. Number one, she was literally, I could tell she was painting every day because she was posting like every couple days. And number two, I could see her style forming. Like I could tell when art was posted that it was her work, right? And these are students that say, I don't have a style yet. How do I find my style? And they don't realize that they're already there. Like they're building their style. They're developing their style like right before our eyes. But we don't see it right away, right? I never saw it right away either. It's very common. But I reached out to her. I said, I'm seeing the work that you're doing in the group, you're posting. I'm very proud of you. I love your artwork. I would love to feature you in one of my newsletters as an emerging artist student spotlight. And she's like, well, I don't know about that. I don't really, I'm not comfortable with it. I'm not ready for that. And, she sent me a message back with all these excuses. And, I sent her a message and I said, the reason why we're creatives and we create art is to bring joy to people, right? We create our creations because it makes us feel good and we want to make other people happy and feel good. And you're sharing it to the group. Students are being motivated and inspired by you. And I think this could be really inspirational for you. And I feel like there's a little bit of a lack in confidence with you and your art. And I'm thinking this is going to help boost that. And she's like, oh, okay, you talked me into it. And she sent me her images and we got the newsletter ready and post. And ever since that moment, and I did a live a few days after that, and I talked about it in the group. And after that moment, because, I'm missing a very important part of this story. She was posting artwork that she was selling. This woman was selling her artwork. She sold, I don't know how many pieces, but she said every time she posted on her personal Facebook page, somebody would reach out and want to buy it. So she sold several pieces. That's why I was just blown away that she didn't want to be featured at first. So she was selling her artwork. And I had made that in a comment. I said, you do realize people are loving your artwork if they want to buy it. And she said, yeah, but I'm not really there yet. And I'm not really ready to do anything with my art or pursue it. So that was a big kind of comment that she put in the response back that took me by surprise. And the reason why it took me by surprise is because most creatives that have this dream and passion to create, this is the one moment they're waiting for, is just to sell a piece of art. And this woman's selling her art and she doesn't really know if she wants to do anything with it, which is totally fine. But I could sense the reason why is because of the lack of confidence. So, when I made that comment, it kind of shed some light. She was like, oh, wow. So anyways, fast forwarding back, because I'm kind of popping around here, I did that live. I talked about it. And shortly after that, within a week, she started posting more artwork. She started painting more. She started selling more. Lo and behold, I start seeing her boosting and encouraging other students that were right in her shoes and saying the same thing she said just weeks prior. So students were coming on saying, I'm new, I did my first lesson, everybody's artwork's so good, I'm not ready to share, mine's not that great. And here she is coming in there with her comments saying, We need to see your art. We want to cheer you on. We want to make sure you keep going. You know, you don't need to compare your artwork to others. We are here for you. I bet it's even more spectacular than you think. We all see art differently, blah, blah, blah. And she's getting people to post. Then like another week goes by and I see her creating, working with a printer and getting cards done so she could go to a show and start selling. And then she's thinking about putting her art on product. So like just that conversation that I had with her and wanting to feature her in my newsletter helped boost her confidence enough and eliminate those insecurities to actually move forward with her art. And she's doing things now. And that was only a month ago. And it's incredible what she's doing. And even the more presence in the group and her supporting other students. So this is really, really such an important, pivotal point for artists is to have support and encouragement. Because we all need cheerleaders. I mean, look at the big sports teams, right? Football, like hockey, football, they got the cheerleaders, they got the crowds, they got the fans. Hockey, it's like the music and the pump up and Videotron, like it's everywhere. We need to get pumped up and encouraged. So this is really, really, really important. And that is my number one tip that is so long-winded, but honestly, there's so much that I can do to talk about that. How do we embrace those imperfections though, right? Like how do we actually do that? I think the most important thing and how I learned how to do that, because honestly, when I started in the industry creating art, my style was very different. I was painting very tight. Meaning everything had to be perfect. You know, I was looking at photographs. I was drawing out my composition to make sure it was absolutely perfect. Like the perspective was right and everything was just perfect. And I got all the details and the shading and all this stuff. And as I started growing in my career, and especially after the recession in 2008, because things changed dramatically in home decor and the art licensing industry. And this is where trends just, I think it was probably like this rise of social media too. And this is where trends just started revolving, right? It's like, it's in and then it's out and then it's in it and then it's out. And I wasn't used to that because when I started in the art licensing industry, you know, it's like reds and deep tones and patchwork and abstract and lots of layers and painterly and very like technical artists. That's the way it was for like 10 years. So I could create art and paint collections based on that. Like my first ever released paintings were 2 birds of paradise, tropical birds of paradise that I painted that got published. And because they were such a success in that first quarter that I released those paintings, they were the top 10 best selling art pieces globally in the home decor market. And these paintings brought me royalties for years. Like I painted them and, you know, my publishers pumping them out, selling prints everywhere, framed art, all this to galleries and stores and, you know, there was very little e-commerce then. So, you know, stores had to buy mass wholesale, put mass wholesale orders in for art prints and then sell them from there, which is very different than how it is now. Those were the good old days. But what I noticed happening is trends were changing, style was changing, colors were changing. And I'd kind of been out of it for a little bit because I had my kids and I was raising them. So when I was emerging back into the art licensing scene and things were very different, I realized that now I needed to change. So here's a professional artist that has been successful in doing this for 10 years, and now I'm kind of back at square one. I'm back at square one. I'm a little bit older. I'm a little bit rusty, and I'm thinking I'm at a disadvantage because everything's changing. Social media is coming, all this, and I'm like, oh gosh, how am I going to do this, right? But honestly, what I did was dove back into the art scene and joined a community within my community when I lived in Arizona. And I ran a teen art program. And I just got back into the scene slowly, and I started surrounding myself with artists. Didn't really have the most positive experience, to believe it or not. Like, it wasn't a good experience. It was a very toxic environment because I think like a lot of artists were older, so it was that old school kind of way of like competition and like snubbing, and you do art shows and whose art is that, and comparing. So I struggled with that. But what I did find was a small group of artists within that I built my own community with, that were like-minded like me, where we supported each other and encouraged each other. And even though we did different mediums, like one was collage, she did encaustics, another did ceramics. And of course I was a painter and I did drawing, and I did a lot of like mixed media. Another one was doing journals. So we all came together and we formed our own little community and of support. And we learned from each other. So I realized that I had to adapt and start kind of learning, like, let me try new mediums, let me try new ways of creating, I really need to loosen up. And that's one thing that I struggled with for a very long time, was just painting loose. So this goes back to like, how do you embrace your imperfections? Well, you need to try new things. You have to become versatile with your techniques, and just know, like, I'm here to tell you, because I've been doing this a long time and I've been in the industry for a very long time. There is no wrong or right way to create art. There is no right product. There is no right technique. Art is connected to our emotions, and you've got to create the way that you feel great doing it. You know, you can paste things, you can glue things, you can paint things, you can draw things. Now, yeah, granted, there are a lot of techniques you can learn, and I know a lot of them, and I teach a dozen techniques. I teach anything from watercolor technique to blending techniques to shading, perspective, composition, full body acrylic, using acrylics as washes, mixed media. I mean, there are a plethora of techniques that you can learn within these mediums. But that doesn't mean that's how you have to do it and how you have to progress in your art doing it. What I always encourage students is, you've got to try it. Be introduced and try it, and then figure out a way that you can use those techniques in your own art that make you feel good. So, for an example, if you're doing a watercolor, and it's funny that I'm using watercolor as an example because I use acrylics. So actually, let's use acrylics as an example. If you take an acrylic painting class and they're teaching you how to block paint, and then you do another, now I'm using examples from my courses, and then you take like a pattern design class and you're using like maybe gel pens or Poscas to like implement some designs by hand, or you're doing mandalas. I always encourage my students, like, what did you like about this class, the acrylic painting class, block painting? What did you like about this design class? Why don't you try fusing them? You can do both. So the subject that you like painting, maybe start with a block paint and then do some designs on top. Or if you liked my watercolor techniques where we use washes and we splatter paint, use that as a background and then come in and do some doodling mandalas on top. Like, there is no right and wrong way. You know, oftentimes we'll see art from an artist that we love and we think, oh, that's so cool, like it's really neat. Oftentimes the best art that's out there has multiple layers and you can't really figure out how they did it, because the way they got there was through experimenting and playing. And that's how I came up with some of my techniques, these like splatter and wash techniques. Well, you know, I was trying something else and I had one of those oopsie moments where maybe like I was trying to do a little splatter, but a big blob came up. And typically, and this is where most artists I know are going to relate, would say, oh, this is ruined, and throw it out. No, I set it off to the side, I let it dry, and I'm thinking there's going to be a way that I can do something with that. Because one thing I learned is when you have mistakes like that, oftentimes they dry very different than how they look when they're wet. So you could have some cool effect. And that's what happened with mine, is like this blob of dirty water splat on something I was doing. And I was like, oh, but then when I saw it dry and I saw the effect, I thought, you know what? Oh, let me try to intentionally do this on my next painting, because it kind of reminds me of like sand at the beach and it's watery. So I can get the feel of like the beach and some coastal work, and then I'll do some seashells on top of it. And I'll try to do the seashells in that same style, like really washy, and then I'll get some illustration. That's how I developed one of my loose styles, just playing. And I whipped up some coastal work using those techniques, and my publisher loved them. They took them, they ran with them, and started selling them to e-commerce stores and online. And they're still online. So, and I decided to create a course on that. So just all these like oopsie moments that I've had that I thought were so devastating and maybe ruined my art, I have taken and put it into like my little compartment in my brain saying new technique. Like I've got this little, like my brain's sectioned, not the way it's supposed to, but I have like these little compartments, kind of like my tickle trunk of art. One day you'll hear about that too, but I have these little compartments and I put the ideas in there and I set it aside and I build off that. So I'll just start creating these loose, washy, illustrative art in so many different styles, in subject, and see where it can go. That's how I started loosening up. And this is how you can start becoming very confident and eliminate those insecurities with your art, by playing with your mistakes. Because the more and more you do something and the more practice that you have at doing it, the more confident you become, because now you're in control of that, right? Because let's face it, in reality, our insecurities are our lack of control with something. So, and that's what it is with our art, is the lack of control in our art. So once you take control of that, like you take these oopsies that were unintentional and start making them intentional, then your feelings towards it will change. You'll begin to feel more confident and comfortable, and those insecurities will start settling. And then you move on to the next. Part of being an artist and a successful one, is growing. The more that you create, the more you will become confident in what you're doing, because the better you get. And that kind of goes into like my third tip, is just practice and prevail. You need to grow. We all grow. We all start somewhere, and the more and more we do it, the better we get. the better we get, the more confidence we get. It's like anything we do in life. It's a new job, it's a sport. We all have to start somewhere, and it's the same thing with art. You know, I think people who want to start being creative or have that creative bug, they try a course and they expect greatness right away. Well, no, it takes time to get there. It takes practice and it takes growing. And that's why a lot of my courses they're all broken down into short modules. So you like paint for 15 minutes and then your next lesson, there's a break. So you're not feeling overwhelmed doing this large like masterpiece. Who wants to do that? I mean, you know, I think we all have these insecurities from trauma. I'm going to get into this. And I know that that's where mine comes from. And my trauma actually comes from art school. So I have a degree in fine arts. I went to university. I did 4 years art education for my fine arts degree. And for me, it wasn't really a positive experience. I love art, but you know, at first it was exciting. But as the years went by, I found it wasn't what was helping me grow. What we did in art school was literally just paint and copy masters for 4 years, and that was not fun for me. Like, why do I want to paint like Cezanne or Picasso or like Monet, for crying out loud? Like, and the intimidation. Here, you need to get like 30 by 40 canvases. Here's a paintbrush and some paint. We weren't taught right away how to mix paint. Like, we had to take special courses and stuff like that. But it was terrifying. And then, you know, with drawing, this is going to go into my insecurity here. All we did in drawing class for 4 years was self-portraits. We drew our face all the time, or figures. And it is tough, and it was hard, and it was boring. I just want to talk about, so my whole point there is like practice, right? Practice and try new things. I think you guys got my 3 kind of pointers there. But I want to talk a little bit about my insecurities as an artist and what I went through. And there's so many of them. Today, I'm just going to talk about one thing. And maybe you can guess, because behind me are a lot of my portrait paintings. So, and that's why I mentioned my trauma with portraits, because for many years, I really avoided, like when somebody said portrait painting, it just put like a stake through my heart. Like, I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to look at it. I didn't want to see it. You know, I hope no one ever asked me to do a portrait, because there's no way I'm going to do it. And that was my mentality. Funny thing, it was probably a few years ago, I started, like, I've always been into animal painting. Actually, that's my art journey. When I was in art school, I fell in love with oil paints, and I loved, I love animals. I'm an animal fanatic, but I love like big cats, tigers, lions, and like exotic animals. So that's what I mainly did right out of art school, is I was painting large cats, like very up close oil paintings. So I've always had a love for drawing animals. Anyways, a few years ago, I guess it's like 5 years ago now, these quirky animal portraits kind of started emerging in art licensing. So I would get call outs from some of my partners I worked with about these quirky animals. So I tried my hand at a few of them. And to be honest, I hadn't painted animals in a very, very long time. Like, the majority of the work that I did in art licensing was like florals and just whatever was kind of niche-y. Landscapes, I'll get into that in a minute too. But like a lot of florals, mandalas, and like abstract work, really. Nothing really too crazy until I signed on with a licensing partner and manufacturer 5 years ago when I moved to Texas. And it was really like niche, trendy market, which was super exciting for me because I really wanted to do more with my art. Like I just wanted to do more subject, more styles, and this partner was willing to sign me on, and we just ran with it. So that's where my kind of quirky animal journey started, is I thought, okay, I'm going to take my skills at painting animals and we'll do it in a different way, like, you know, putting glasses on them or dressing them up, you know, like these guys here. Well, these are a little more, this is years later. But my first ones were very basic. It was just like almost like a realistic animal portrait, and then I just put glasses on. So it started like that. And then just as I did it more and more and more, and let me tell you, every time I got a request for an animal portrait, I would be so terrified. Like the security wasn't there yet. I had lots of insecurities painting because I'd been painting so freely for so long. Like I had taken 5 years to loosen up my art, and I was doing abstracts and florals. Now I have to go back to like drawing an animal and doing it this way and getting really like detailed. That's how like I reverted back to my old ways at first. But soon, the more and more, because what happened is some of my quirkies got picked up by Hobby Lobby and at home, and they were in demand. So I was always getting requests for it. Soon, I just became the quirky animal artist, and that's what I was known for. And I'm thinking like, oh no, is this where my career is going? I'm just going to be known for quirky animals. Like I want to do other stuff too. Anyways, long story short, I'm doing way more now, but that's the feeling that I felt even as a professional at that level. The insecurity is real and it's still there. But what I soon started realizing, and I had started doing my online art courses at that time. So getting on with this new licensing partner and running my courses and mentoring students, I started listening to what I was telling them or mentoring them or helping them with, and I started taking my own advice. So I started to loosen up again. I started to relax a little bit more when I was painting and not be so uptight about making sure everything was perfect. And the more and more I did that and the more I painted, the more I realized I was painting a lot looser, and I really didn't care if it was perfect or not. Like I was learning to accept those brush strokes. You know, when you put paint down and it's not clean and you see the tip of the brush that spreads at the end, I was like, huh. Because in reality, this adds character, and this is what like the industry wants. When the buyers are buying art, this is what they want, right? So I started embracing it. So, you know, the last 5 years, my art has gone in such a different direction. I mean, I did these simple animal paintings, meaning they weren't very decorated, but they were very like more realistic, to more abstract versions of them. And I had more fun doing them. Then, you know, fast forward, and this is what I'm creating now, these intricate, crazy animals that look like they take a lot of effort, where in fact, these ones took less effort than how I used to paint, because I started letting go and just having fun with the paint and utilizing everything that I knew and felt, and that I was teaching my students to loosen up and just use brush strokes and just have fun with it. And, you know, like my flower doesn't have to be a perfect, proportioned, recognizable flower. I can have fun and do swirls and be loose. And that's the direction that I took with it. So, you know, animal portraits are one thing. It was something I was a little more comfortable with. But funny thing is, about a year ago, so I'm actually with an agent now. I still work with other licensing partners, but I do have an agency and I have an art director. And my art's going in like so many different directions in the last few years. But now I'm working in the home decor market still. That is my specialty for wall decor, but I'm branching in the last couple of years. I've been working really hard on building collections with patterns and artwork, and developing collections of my own, kitchenware, all kinds of stuff that will be going in stores. So this it's always been a dream of mine. And, now I'm at that point, but I still work in both areas. So I get requests all the time. My art directors will send me messages. Hey, I've got a request from you. This customer wants portraits. It's like I'm having PTSD with portraits. When it was last year, believe it or not, my art director said, hey, you think you can do some portraits? I'm getting a request from a customer and they love your quirky animals and they want some kind of abstract portraits. And I was like, oh gosh, sure, I can do that. But inside I'm like, am I going to be able to pull this off? Like, how am I going to do this? I really don't know where to start. So I started with inspiration, kind of looking at the web to see what kind of things were out there, different ways that I can paint and utilize my style in creating portraits that would be representative of me and my style. And I'm seeing all these amazing portraits that like realistic women with their flowers in their hair and all this stuff. And I'm like, God, I'm not going to do an oil portrait here. Like, that's just not me. And so I said, when I have a lot of creative freedom with my art directors, which is beautiful. So I thought, well, let me try something. I'm going to try it my way and I'm going to do it. And then I'll submit it. And if they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. We're going to move on, right? Because that's one thing that I have learned and do very often in my work. And that's, I never give up an opportunity and I always try something new. And that's how I've been able to grow so rapidly and be able to paint so many different things. So I tried my hand, and honestly, like, these women on this side, this is what came out of it. So these are my first portraits that I've done, painted since art school. Do I want to say when I graduated art school in 1996. So it's been a minute. It's been like a long time. Needless to say, I just threw them together and I was quite happy with how they came out. Now, if I say it was easy, that would be a lie. I definitely struggled. I struggled with a lot of things, but I didn't give up and I tried. And one thing I learned in this industry that you'll hear me talk about a lot is you always submit and show whether you like it or not, because it's those pieces that you hate that everybody's going to love. And in my experience in art licensing, those are the ones that always get picked up. Why it happens that way, I don't know, but it does. So these are the portraits I managed to pull out, and they are published and they're sold right now online. But I just want to, and that's just from last year. So as you can see, those insecurities are very real no matter what stage. But it's kind of a beautiful thing because that motivates me and pushes me to grow and try new things as an artist. I also want to share a couple tips and techniques that us licensing artists use. You know, I did do a video that's posted, which is, it's going to be listed in the description below, but I talk about how Photoshop is really important with licensing artists and how valuable it could be with saving you time and monetizing on your artwork. And I'm going to show examples of that. I'm not going to go into detail, but I do have a course, Photoshop 101 for artists and designers, and the link is below. So make sure you subscribe. You can check out that description. There's going to be a video there, so you can click on it and see what I teach in that course. But it is such a valuable tool, and I'm going to show you why. So a couple of other portraits that I did. So as you can see with these paintings behind me, they are completed paintings. I've drawn out the composition. I painted the background, the foreground, all the accessories right on one piece of paper. But in art licensing, it's so incredibly necessary to learn and understand how to paint isolated images, especially if you're getting in, if you want to license your work on products and you want to build collections and you want to like put your work on you know, dishes and furniture and fabrics and all those kind of things. You have to really work in layers. And when I say this, I think that's why there's so many artists that think they have to go digital and work in Procreate, because they can do those layers there. But the reality is that in art licensing in the industry, there is such a larger need for hand-painted artwork. So understanding how to paint your artwork in layers and then digitize it, meaning you're scanning it and bringing it into Photoshop and you can build those layers with your hand painted, is so detrimental to your career and will make you such a more successful artist, understanding those skills. Because you can monetize and you can reuse artwork that you've licensed to somebody else in a different way. This is another topic. When you license to somebody, there could be exclusives and you can't use that painting anywhere else. But there's ways you can take elements and rework it so that it's a new piece of art. And we all do it. So I want to show you how I will paint pieces of things and merge my paintings together. So a couple other paintings that I got requested for, portrait paintings, I decided, because I do so many floral, I'm just going to paint the backgrounds and their heads. And this isn't even typically how I would normally do it, because I would normally just paint like a bald head, you know, and then I would do a background separate and then put accessories. But this time I did my painted background and I have the head. So I've got these ladies here. Isn't that cool? So I painted my pattern background, painted these ladies with heads, and then I thought, you know, I've done so many floral paintings, and these are two that I've done, that I brought them into Photoshop. I removed the background and I just pulled like the flowers here. So I just want you to kind of visualize something for a second. Okay. So these two paintings I actually merged, all right? Meaning I took the flowers from this and the face of this painting, I scanned them, and this is what came out of it. And I did this digitally in Photoshop. Now I did alter some colors too, which is a magical thing in Photoshop. And this is why learning Photoshop is so important. Look what I created. These are my originals. This is the final product. And every element in this painting is hand painted. So there's ways that you can manipulate and play with your artwork to monetize it. Here's the other one. So I took these two paintings and I fused them together, and this is what I came out with. Isn't that cool? Originals, final product. And then I'm able to play with the color in the background and alter it. So if you are an artist and you've ever thought about licensing, or you're dreaming of going in that direction, you need to check out my course, Photoshop 101 for Artists. The link is below. Again, be sure to subscribe so that anytime I have additional information on art licensing, courses, or just free knowledge that I share with you, you can get that little alarm bell and get notified and not miss out on anything. All my students can attest, and if my students are watching this, please put a comment below and attest to this. I share so much valuable information. So if you're an emerging artist, whether you want to take it to a career or just paint for the positive energy and feeling, and or for friends, or maybe you just love doing crafts and you want to implement that on your DIY projects, definitely just join me. I'll help you. I will get you there. I'm so lost for words right now. I think because I've been talking for an hour, but I'm hoping that through this video, not only my students, but new viewers, and maybe new viewers on YouTube who don't follow my art career or my courses or are not part of that Painting with Yvette community, start learning a little bit more about me and what I can do to help you as an artist, because I think it's so important to have art in the world. There's so many different creative artlets and outlets. Artlets. Man, I think I just made up a word. But it's important. And, you know, a lot of my students, they're over 50 and they finally have time to create. They're just aspiring artists that had to focus on their career and their families their whole life. And they're enjoying my courses. And my courses are for everyone and every age. So check out in the description below. You will find links to my courses. You'll find links to other videos that have valuable content. And I'm excited for you all to keep continuing with this art journey and world of creativity. And I hope this helps you boost your confidence in your art and can relate a little bit about, you know, those insecurities, and that we all go through it, even myself, who's a professional. So it doesn't matter what stage we're at. It's really part of the process. And that, in essence, is how you're going to grow as a creative. We all have these insecurities, but that's what molds you and your style. Embrace who you are, embrace your imperfections. I'm going to keep kind of grinding that in your head. And then until next time, see ya. Bye.